Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and as promised, I am bringing you the larger version of Midsummer Stream 12 by 12. We threw a little bonus in there of a very small painting. Yesterday I put up the 25 Days of Tonalism post, and also a little bonus of this 3.5 by 5 by the pond, which is a neat little painting. Still a little painting, so I thought it'd be good to get into something bigger. And what I think is going to be interesting is when I get into the textured boards on some of these larger paintings. And I'm aware 12 by 12 is not that large, but certainly larger than 5 by 7 or 3.5 by 5. So one of my issues with working larger is that you and I'm not the only artist, of course, that's dealt with this, but you lose that sense of immediacy and freshness. And I'm actually kind of hopeful that having a bit more texture can help with that, help alleviate that, because one of the things I like about having that texture built in, and one of the things that really sparked it was, of course, working on over the top of failed paintings. But one of the things I like about having that texture built in is that you can do a little drag with the brush and you get some implied detail, and that's totally invaluable. To sit there and actually render or delineate the detail is not the type of paintings that I want to do. In fact, I was looking at the work of an artist this weekend who does that, and his work is awesome. It's really fresh, and it works great for him. Everything is very, very, very well delineated, and yet the overall painting is very fresh, and he's pulling that off. But for me, what happens when there's an excessive delineated detail is that things get kind of tight, and it sort of cuts off that emotional flow that I'm looking for. And that's really what I'm painting. I mean, I paint landscapes, but the fact of the matter is that I'm really I'm always trying to get across an emotional quality in my work. And this is what attracted me to tonalism when I first came across it, is that it was clear to me that the emotions were the preeminent aspect of tonalism. They were the defining aspect of tonalism, and everything else was secondary as far as I could see. And that's, I'm not basically what you call an emotional person, but I am a empathic person. I am a person that is very good at reading the feelings of others, and also conveying feelings and emotions through my painting and music. And that's what interests me. That's how I roll. Everybody's different though, but this is one of the reasons I see tonalism as so valuable. Now, I did a bunch of talking yesterday, so we'll see if I have anything left to talk about today. But I guess there's always something to talk about. I'm always working on things, and I did mention, I think, in one of the last two previous videos, the Tonalist rub down, and I have never really had the I don't want to use that word, the courage, I guess, to actually do that before. But some of these, by do that, I mean taking a painting and rubbing the entire painting down with something like a burnt sienna, and then painting it back up, bringing it back. You'd be surprised if you try that, how darkening it really is. But I have done it on several of these recent 5x7s I'm redoing, and they're 5x7s I really don't have much to lose. Some of them have been, maybe even 5 or 6 years old. So They've had their time. They've been around. To be fair to them, though, they had their time back in the day, and then I'm actually, I don't think I'm very prolific, but many people do think I'm prolific, and so I have a lot of 5x7s around. They ended up going into these storage containers, and I might roll them out for this or that. But one of the main reasons I'm doing the reevaluation is for this Etsy project, which is going to be very 5x7 and 5x5 centric. I'm not planning on rolling out a lot of my larger work there. I'm going to reserve the larger work for the galleries and use these studies to play around online. That's my plan. Anyway, you take some of this, you got your painting, you take a little burnt sienna. Actually, I don't technically use burnt sienna. It's red iron oxide from Gamblin. It's known as transparent earth red, but many suppliers you'll see, like Winsor Newton, even though the tube is labeled burnt sienna, it's actually this red iron oxide. And I call that out because traditional burnt sienna is somewhat transparent, but far less transparent than red iron oxide. Just want to get that out there. I prefer red iron oxide. It's the same basic color. Has a stronger tinting strength, while not being overwhelming in its tinting strength. It's a great pigment. I love it. Like I said, that's transparent earth red from Gamblin, but from like a Winsor Newton, it's just plain burnt sienna. I think it's number 101 on the PB 101 or one of those, PR 101. Is the designation for the pigment. But anyway, you take some of that, you put it on the palette. I add a little bit of my drying oil and get a kind of a thin bit of stuff there on the palette, and then I'll take a paper towel and just rub the whole thing down, and you'll see the whole painting goes very reddish orange. And sometimes I'll use the transparent yellow oxide. That's transparent earth, I think is what it's called. And with a little bit of burnt sienna. The reason I don't like that just straight up is it has a bit more of a greenish quality, which depending on the painting, that might be something. I did do one yesterday that was predominantly that tone. It was more in the greenish area because it was a forest scene. It worked fine. But anyway, you rub this over the entire painting. You can see the whole thing goes reddish orange, and you go, oh my god. But it's surprising how quick and easy it is to bring things back up, and what an amount of harmony you have. I can't say I do this on absolutely every painting I do, but it's very interesting, and it's certainly creates a warm tonalist effect right out of the gate. I could probably take any painting anyone did, do this to it, and start getting into a tonalist vein right off the bat. Now, where I first heard about this technique is there's a biography, in fact, biography of Georgia Ness, and I was going to say, in fact, this book is available online for free in lots of different places. It was written by Georgia Ness Jr., and it goes into the story of his father's life. It's very Spartan on actual techniques that Ness used, which of course is the main information I wanted, but I think a part of the reason for that is that Ness would do a lot of different things to get his painting across. He was very much driven by inspiration, and of course he had quite a vast intellect as well, but he was noted for picking or scratching or scraping or glazing or doing whatever he had to do, scumbling, you name it, to get the painting to do what he wanted to do. And he also was famous for painting over the top of old paintings, of both his own and other people's. In that book, he mentions this technique of just rub the whole thing down, and then bring it all back up with a fresh application of paint afterwards. And it's a pretty handy technique. To To be honest, I can get a tonalist feeling across, like in the one we're looking at here. I did very little glazing. I did some scumbling in the back to these trees in the distance, and that's a very effective technique when you take a kind of a lighter, more opaque pigment, like well, generally I'll do like a yellow ochre mixed with some white, maybe a little gray in there, and you can rub that over, and you see that has an intense effect of making creating a haze, you know. But if I need to, I can just install that sort of thing from the beginning. I can get an entire toneless painting without doing any glazing at all, just because that's my mindset, and I'm working with all my colors in harmony. And it's that's of course based on years of experience and a intrinsic aesthetic feeling for color. Now, that's something that is maybe sometimes hard to learn, but it's probably possible to learn. I've always had a great color sense, if I don't say so myself. But it's certainly developed, and my eye and my ability to pull things off well, I should say I've always had the ability to pull things off that I went for, but I think the thing that's really expanded is my imagination and my, you know, even going after things. Like in this painting you're looking at now, there's a purple, yellow, red. There's a lot of red, but the red is, you know, a tertiary. It's often the third aspect, and mostly these sort of purple rocks in the foreground are offset against the yellowish landscape in the distance, and we're getting some oranges and things, and I think it's pretty effective. I mean, it was really effective in the little study, and I just played it up even more in the big one. The composition of this one is sort of different, you know, having that sort of ridge or whatever it is on our left there. It kind of closes it off. Oh, you can see I'm doing a little glazing there. Yeah, not a lot on this one. I didn't think I did a lot. Sometimes too I get in with the black and kind of scrunch things up and create a little faux detail that way. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with this painting. It's had a really good response in the studio. Nearly sold the study the other week there, and actually I'm not even sure. I think this painting's under a table or something right now. I've just had so many paintings coming and going from the studio, and it's such a small studio. I often have to, you know, put things away. I don't have room to keep everything out. Anyway, getting close to the end here. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate that. If you're digging my videos, digging my channel, click subscribe. I appreciate that too. And you can go to my website, landscapepainter.co.nz. You can follow my blog through there. On the blog is a higher resolution version of this image, so you can check out that, and also 2 zoom-ins with the details, so check that out as well. I'll be back next week, and meanwhile I would appreciate it if you would take good care and stay out of trouble. Until then.